Hey everyone, Tiago here. Today we're going to be taking a look at a gaming controller, specifically this one right here. This is going to be the EasySMX D10. Now they make some really cool controllers, and this is going to be basically multi-platform with a focus on the PC, of course. You can play this on the Nintendo Switch, for example, as well as anything else that you can connect with Bluetooth. Obviously, PlayStation controllers are usually going to be, a little bit different. But if you're a PC gamer, this one has a lot to look forward to. I've already taken it out of the box a while back. I've been playing with it, and obviously, you can even see it looks like an Xbox controller. Very similar layout. Very, very comfortable. And you can already hear the clickiness, the tactility of this controller. That's going to be one big difference from a stock controller. And now let's hear a word from our sponsor, VIP-CDKdeals.com, a Windows Pro CD key. Add to cart, you put in code CC20. This will also work on Windows 11. You want to go into your settings in Windows, change and adjust your CD key, click activate, and now let's go back to the video. We're going to basically compare this to something like a stock Xbox controller, so you see where it's going to be worth it to get something that many people would call like a pro type of controller. So the first big difference, it has TMR joysticks. One of the biggest complaints about controllers in general is going to be stick drift, right? So TMR, it's similar to Hall effects, but a better and a slightly newer technology, where you're not going to have to worry about stick drift. They're generally very precise, very accurate. The power consumption is generally going to be a little bit lower. But the most important thing for most people is that you're not going to get stick drift. A lot of people basically throw away controllers because they start to move around by themselves. Sometimes they get dirty. Sometimes the traditional potentiometers can fail and things like that. So that's going to be the biggest difference. If you buy a brand new, even PlayStation 5 controller or an Xbox controller, if it's the original, Sony or Microsoft, none of them have the Hall effects or TMR yet. So this is going to be one of the great ways that you can actually get one of those controllers, especially if you're like a PC gamer, and it's just going to last a lot longer. Now, the other thing that's going to be a pretty big difference, you're going to have your back buttons. Usually, unless you buy like an Elite, Microsoft Elite controller, or even like a DualSense Edge, which are much more expensive than this, you're not going to have these type of back control. Generally going to have these type of back paddles here. So these, you can basically map them to any of the face buttons. And an easy way to think about the back buttons is, let's say you're playing a game like Call of Duty, right? You're going to map the left one to jump, maybe the right one to like slide or crouch or something like that. And then your fingers can stay on the joysticks. So it's one less thing you have to move around and just makes your playing more accurate, like when you're aiming and things like that. So that's basically the benefit of having back buttons. Something else that's going to be pretty different. You hear these triggers? They're very clicky, like a tactile, almost like a mouse click, right? So these, you can actually change them back to a normal pull if you're playing a racing game or something like that. And then you hop on to Call of Duty. Look at that. Look how easy that is. You just actuate it like that. And then you can simply have these, the idea is that it's a very, shallow pull, very shallow actuation, very fast. So if you have to aim and do something fast, that's where it's going to give you a nice advantage when you're playing different type of games. The bumper is pretty much a normal bumper. It feels and sounds pretty decent. Xbox bumpers are already pretty good as well. And then another big difference, as you get to the face buttons, listen, to be tactile buttons. So that just makes playing a lot easier. It sounds great, it feels great, and you get a much more feedback than like mushy buttons on some older controllers and things like that. And even the D-pad as well, for those of you that play fighting games, it's also going to have a very tactile feedback. And then obviously everything else, it's USB-C, but you do get this dock in the box as well. The little USB adapter, the 2.4 gigahertz connection to your computer. You can actually slot it right in here. And this is going to act like both your USB adapter. You can connect it directly to the computer, but I like connecting the dock. And then you put the USB adapter in and a USB-C cable. And then this will basically charge the controller and act as like your receiver, basically. So that way you only have to deal with one thing. You just set it down to charge and it fits in here really nicely. You see it slots in there. It's magnetic. So overall, just a fantastic way to connect the controller, and you get to charge. Very, very cool. So that's really, really cool. As we turn the controller on, you're gonna have your nice RGB lights. Very, very nice. And you can actually cycle through these, and it does have vibration or rumble. You can cycle through different levels as well. If you want to turn that off, that's fine. Like if you're playing a competitive game or something like that. You can also do that. It also has a turbo mode. You see there's that little M button there that you can press with other buttons and activate. Basically, it allows you to do different inputs and different things like that. But typically, I just like using the controller without software, just connect it to your PC, just like a traditional controller, like an OEM controller, and then see how it does. And this one, did great. It's easy to map the keys in the back. You have your little M button for map there. You have a few more settings, but overall, very, very easy to use. And then on the back, you're going to have the different toggle for like Nintendo Switch, Bluetooth, or the USB adapter if you're playing on PC. And the back paddles feel great as well. They're called M2, M1, and you only get 2 instead of 4. But for most games, 2 is more than enough. And actually, 4 can be confusing in some games. I have some controllers with 4 buttons, and I often find myself hitting them by accident. So I really like 2, especially for like Call of Duty. You don't want to be hitting the other buttons by accident when you're like in the middle of an intense action or something like that. So I really, really like that. So overall, this is a fantastic controller, very affordable. It's not very expensive at all. I'm going to leave the link down in the description below. It has all the features that I look for in a high-end or pro controller. There are controllers much more expensive than this that don't have these features. The tactile buttons, TMR joysticks. You have your triggers that you can actually change to normal if you don't want it clicky. Back to that. So everything feels great. Back buttons ergonomically. If you've held an Xbox controller, this is very, very similar. Little texture on the grip. Overall, the EasySMX D10 is a really, really good controller. Funny that OEM controllers usually don't have anywhere near the level of features that something like this has for often the same price, or, this is a lot cheaper than some of the more expensive pro versions of some controllers. So definitely a controller I can recommend. Check this out. I'm going to leave the link down below. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.